From mastering the art of saving to harnessing the power of investments, we cover it all. But it's not just about the money. It's about cultivating a millionaire mindset that propels you towards success in every aspect of your life. Join our community of ambitious go-getters and discover the secrets to becoming a millionaire by morning. Subscribe now to Millionaire by Morning on your favorite podcast platform. And let's make your financial dreams a reality. Millionaire by Morning, where money mindset, motivation, and mastery meet. Subscribe today and unlock your path to prosperity.
Hello, and welcome back to the Millionaire by Morning podcast. We are back with the very first podcast of 2026. So we're kicking the first podcast off with a really powerful guest today. So let's jump right into it. We have George Rivera, who's a father, first founder and creator of the Buy Back Time Formula. Over the last 3 decades, he's built and scaled multiple ventures in direct response, e-commerce, real estate, and coaching, helping generate hundreds of millions in online sales. Welcome to the show today, George. We are pleased to have you.
Thank you, Rashad. Excited to be here.
This is so awesome, man. Like I say, you're the first podcast on the show for this year, and with your accomplishments, we would invite you anything that you have, for our listeners, and you have systems and you know formulas in place. So although I want to get into that, can you take us back to a time where you didn't have these formulas? When did you first, I guess, become an entrepreneur and kind of kick your journey off?
Absolutely. Well, Happy New Year to you and everybody listening. Yeah, so when did this all start? So I became an entrepreneur back in the mid 90s. That's, yeah, 30, I guess 31 years ago at this point, back when dinosaurs used to roam the earth. And yeah, at that point, I was 17 years old in high school, and I saw an infomercial late night on TV. I'd probably seen it for like 6, 7 months, and one day I just got the courage to like go get my mom's credit card and buy it, and I bought it, and it taught a lot about newspaper advertising and old school direct response, direct mail. Internet was kind of in its infancy back then, and so, yeah, I bought the course. I ripped it open. I put some ads out there, got a couple sales. It was overall was a catastrophic failure if you're judging the success and failure of that specific project. But the one thing that it did is it instilled the desire in me to never want to have a boss, never have anybody control my destiny. And so, yeah, that lit the entrepreneurial bug inside of me. My path was to, study hard in school, go to college, and go be a medical doctor. That's where I thought my career was. I actually entered into college with pre-med on my mind, and I had, bounced around a couple years after starting that initial business at 17, and I found my footing for that season in my life while I was in college. And so I changed my degree from pre-med to marketing because I'd already had a pretty solid six-figure a year business that I started, in that time. And I was like, I better study something that complements my business versus something completely different like medical school that's just going to be a contrary path. So yeah, I'd say those were the early days. Had no systems, no formulas, and still even for the later years was kind of in the wilderness in that sense. But yeah, that's the very very beginning. So that's how it started.
George, asking a question based off of what you just said. Do you think entrepreneurs are born or made?
Man, that is a great question. Man, I think there's kind of, compelling evidence that you could make an argument for either case. I feel like For me, I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur, and a lot of my friends and peers in this business, I would probably say the same for them. Anytime that they'd had any sort of employment or boss, it just didn't feel right, and they sort of kind of bumped their head around in life until they figured out the path they wanted to go down. And the entrepreneurial path is not the easiest path, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners would agree with, but something inside of you keeps you going. It's almost like the stubborn faith that's like, I'm getting bumped around. I don't like it. It's not fun. People doubt me, but like I believe in myself and I'm going to keep going. So I don't know. I feel like you sort of have to be born with that, but I could totally be wrong and other people might have their own opinion. But yeah, I'd say born. If I'm picking one, I'm saying you're born to do this.
Yeah. When you say it out loud, it makes you kind of say, yeah, you because you definitely have to have the the heart for it. That's for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah. No, I'd love to hear what you think.
No, now that you said it outside, I'm thinking the same.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I hear it out loud, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, because a lot of the times, people, what's really true that I think is the fact that A students make good employees, bosses, and work for corporations, and it's the C students and the D students who make the really good entrepreneurs. I really believe that, but I believe that that's for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's I would have to go with born as well because it's just something that you're not going to put up with a boss, you're not going to put up with some things, and you want to be control of your own destiny. And I think that is something that just comes innate in an innate way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, C student right here. I'm proud of that. C, maybe like C minus, if anything. So, yeah, that what you said is true.
Yeah, I get a lot of those stories, man. So you mentioned like 31 years ago when you started out, marketing and advertising, of course, was consistent of, billboards, flyers, newspapers. But so you transitioned into a lot of the things that were online after, the digital marketing came out, of course, and e-commerce. So what, I guess, first of all, what was your lesson in that? How did you teach yourself the digital marketing aspect, or is that something you delegated? Moving from traditional marketing to digital marketing. How did you work that out when you first began online?
Yeah. So I started online shortly after kind of that offline fiasco slash disaster. I gave it a few attempts. And again, it could have been one of those moments where I'm not cut out for this, but that's where the stubbornness came in. Like, nope, I love the dream. It might not be this path, but I'm going to figure it out. And yeah, then there was really no like formal courses online. There's one guy named Corey Rudel that I think was kind of in that era, and I'm kind of dating myself. But aside from him, I don't think there was anybody really teaching formal things. So I just kind of carved my own path. I got a website up. Yeah, probably had the world's worst SEO and the ugliest page. But back then, that's kind of the era we were in, and everybody was sort of like figuring out where this whole thing is going. And so I put two and two together. I started in the supplement space online. At the time, the baby boomers were the largest segment of the population. I think they've been until the last number of years, a handful of years. But especially at that time, they're kind of getting into that middle ages, 40s and 50s, and so they want to look and feel younger. So at the time, GNC was the fastest growing, retail shop or franchise, and the internet was also like hockey stick style growth there in the mid 90s, even closer to the later 90s. So I put two and two together, was selling supplements online, and that's how I got my first sort of big break, I would say, my first big success. And yeah, that's how I started. You mentioned, as far as delegation, like I didn't really get into any of that until I'd say about 10 years into it. And then really more like kind of like to what I'm doing more current day, almost like another 10 years later into that. So it's been quite a journey. But yeah, after my initial success in the supplement space, I veered off to sell other things like personal self-defense items, information products, cars on eBay. I partnered up with a local dealer to sell cars on eBay. Then I taught people how to make money from home online using the internet. And then I bounced around after that. I had my own little agency helping people like start their business and scale their business up. That actually was very, very successful. And then I started another supplement company, and this was about 10 years ago. And so, yeah, that's kind of takes you a little bit more to current day. I don't know if you want to pick it at any point there. I'm happy to go in deeper on any of the challenges, obstacles, or just picking it up more current.
So yeah, let's start. We'll pick it up after the supplement. We'll pick it up after the initial success. Let's
Yeah.
start there. So you found success online in the supplement business. Is that where you said, hold on here? I have a formula that could work with anything I touch. Anything I touch turns to gold. Is that when you decided that I'll just utilize this formula? Is that the formula that you're using today?
Yeah, so it took a little while to get to that formula. At that era, I had a great success in the supplement space early on because I had there was this company in Korea that was actually buying from me at mass volume, and that was like my first big success. And then I started to veer off into other things because I had that pretty dialed in, and I thought, well, yeah, let me apply this formula, this strategy that I have to other things. And so yeah, that was a really solid thing, and it kind of lasted me through 2006, 2005, 2006, to where I did something was called Google AdSense, which they're still around now, but there was a whole different, it was a different game at the time where you could sort of game the SEO system, and then Google would prioritize your pages over others because you had Google AdSense on them. And so I remember I'd scaled that business so fast. That was my first $1 million year in 2005. And I'm in my mid 20s, and kind of like, oh my gosh, money's falling from the sky, thinking like this is going to be how my life is until I'm 80 years old. I'm like, yeah, I found my jackpot, my golden goose. So I kind of like shut everything else down, thinking all that other stuff is costing me time and focus on this one thing that's just like printing money from the sky, what it felt like. And then, of course, you know, uh, young and reckless, it's like, nope, Google changed the algorithm and sort of like started punishing those sites, and then the income goes from $1 million a year to like almost nothing overnight, and I already shut these other things down. So I got to a point where I had to like almost rebuild from the bottom. And so my rebound from there came to developing information products on teaching people how to make money from home. And then that sort of had its lifespan, did another million or two there over the span of a couple of years. And then, the Google gods, as they call them, decided to change the algorithm again and ban, online making money products from Google AdWords, because that's where I was getting all my traffic from. And so I was kind of left figuring out, okay, where do I go from here? And so I started an agency almost by accident. I was in a couple different masterminds, and I would help my friends and my peers on, just as a friend, just like, hey, have you ever tried this? And we took somebody from 50 cents per click in revenue to like over $5, like 10x their business, $5 revenue per click by incorporating video sales letters, upsells, one-click upsells, which are very common now. But at the time, you're talking, this might be like 2011-ish time frame. There's still very, very new, kind of breakthrough, marketing tactics here. And so from 2011-ish, 2012 to about 2016, I had an agency where I was helping other companies just get established online, and essentially that's how I made money. And I sort of got niched, for the lack of a better word, into the supplement space because I started to have a lot of success with supplement business owners. And so I kept getting referred to, hey, George is doing this, he can help you. And so all of a sudden I had a number of supplement, clients. And so kind of back to my roots there, and did several $100 million in sales between all of those clients. And so I became kind of the go-to guy in the supplement space. I had all the intel, I had the blueprints, I had the connections, where to buy media, where to get your fulfillment done, best practices, how to reduce refunds, call centers, like the whole thing, top to bottom, is essentially what I had in my head. I don't know that I had it like documented out in a blueprint, probably should have, but I was kind of the go-to guy for that. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own supplement company. So I started my own supplement company. I threw $5,000 in a bank account. I had a new LLC tied to it. And I'm like, I'm going to buy some ads, and it'll either succeed or fail based on this $5,000, but that's my commitment, and we'll see where it goes. and over $200 million later have never had to fund it or anything like that. It just sort of took off. That initial ad budget was all that I ever put in the business, and it's just like been self-funding from there. And so, yeah, that was 2015. And then I scaled the business in 2018 upwards of $20 million for the year. And printing money, it's like a button you press and out comes money. Very profitable business, but I was hating life. I had the world's worst org chart. Imagine me up here and then 40 people beneath me, and I'm delegating out, tasking out, and getting people that I'm paying for to help me run the business, and it would just boomerang back up to me. And I'd rob from the future by saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go and knock this out, and boom, done. And I'm doing a lot of things wrong in doing that. I'm training my team that George is the firefighter you can count on to put the fire out, not me that's getting paid for it. And then the next thing is, I'm taking time away from my family to be doing things that I'm paying other people to do. And so in August of 2018, I reached this burnout point where I'm like hating the business. And I don't use the word hate too often. For me, when I say it, it's like this visceral disgust, anger feeling towards it. And I had a coach and a mentor. He's a dear friend of mine today, but and he happened to be off on vacation in that week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy, when I need him the most, he's not here because he's with his family in Europe enjoying his vacation. So I'll do the next best thing. I'm going to email him. And I just vented in that email. I kind of got it all out, and then boom, sent. And then I was like, okay, felt better. Now I'm ready to get back to work until I just pass out on my computer, because that's how daily life was. And then 20 minutes later, I get a call from my mentor in Rome, and it's like midnight over there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I just needed to get that out. And he's like, no, no, this is an SOS. This is a cry for help. We need to fix this. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, let's do it. It starts right now. And it was a 2-hour conversation. But to sum it up, he basically said, you got to stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you like doing. And I'm just like hitting my head against the wall, kind of like 23 years in business. And okay, finally it's clicking now. Whatever. I'm a late bloomer. I got it. And so from 2018 to I'd say 2020, 2021, that's when I reached the pinnacle of the transformation that I underwent. Scaled the business to more than double, to just shy of $50 million. And instead of working as much as 90 hours, which is insane back in 2018, I scaled down to under 30 hours, sometimes living off the grid in a semi-retired lifestyle. Not because I wanted to neglect my business, but because I wasn't needed as much. And it's not magic or wishful thinking, it's the frameworks that we implemented, which is really the foundation of the buyback time formula. That name didn't even exist back then. I didn't even know anything about delegation really, or bottlenecks or frameworks or anything like that. We just started putting it in. And over the last couple of years, I had a number of friends and peers tell me, you got to teach people how you do this stuff. And I'm like, teach what? Well, you're always traveling, you're making money, you're pouring into your family. We homeschool our kids, so he travels with us everywhere. And there's another kind of parallel story to that's a very father-son relationship thing that's pretty key to this whole thing as well. But I'm attentive to like all of his games, events, and stuff. And I even taught him how to negotiate real estate at 8 years old.
That's that part is very integral. I was going to ask you about that. Um, I was going to ask you about that specifically.
Yeah.
And your dad told you something certain that made you go in the direction that you went in. And
Yeah.
can you tell the very important, because I feel like this is a very important part of everyone's story and the reason for the buyback time.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're talking about how we got here and stuff, and there's a critical component which you just brought up. So thank you. Rewinding back a little bit, real quick, to catch you up to current day on all this. We're going back to my middle school, high school days, late '80s, early '90s. I played in about 40 basketball games in those years, and my dad only went to one of those games. And I remember thinking, man, am I not important? Does my dad not care? And it was a kind of an interesting time, because like I'd score a basket and then I'd look to the empty stands, and like there's no dad cheering there. But my friends, my teammates would score, and their dads were there, like loving on them, cheering on them. That's my boy. And in timeouts, they'd be like, giving him a little pep talk and all that. And I remember one time looking at another dad loving on his kid, and I was like, man, I wish that was my dad. And like that would have crushed my dad hearing that at any point. But My dad was a good man. He was a medical doctor. That's kind of, I thought I was going to follow in his footsteps, and he had a great career from a monetary perspective. We always had nice homes, nice cars, and trips to Europe every summer. But the moment that I needed him the most, he wasn't there, and I didn't care about all that. I'm like, I want that guy, and I don't care what he does, but he's there for his son. I want some of that. So fast forward 20 years later, this is now 2015, 10, now 11 years ago. And he's entering his 40th year of his medical practice. He's 67 years old, and his parents, my grandparents, had just passed away a couple of years prior in their mid 90s. So he's like, hey, I got a good run left ahead of me. So he's kind of gearing up for that. And, there's this saying, God laughs at man's plans. There's kind of a different path was set for him. He got diagnosed with cancer early on in the year. And kind of fast forward later in the year 2015, 2 weeks before he passed away, he tells me these words that are the foundation of almost everything I'm doing right now. He said, don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours. And at the time he told me that, again, 2 weeks before he died, Leo's my son. He's about 10 months old, and I'm already blowing it with him. I'm missing some of his first, the firsts of a child. He's trying to communicate. He's starting to walk. He's kind of like an early mover, and I'm missing all that. Depending on my wife to kind of send me these pictures and videos and stuff. And that was the first time that was ever like poured upon me that I can't keep going in that path, because I remember being the kid whose dad wasn't there. I don't want to repeat that to my son. So a couple of things happened. One, it was sweet closure to that early moment in my life when I was like, does my dad even care? Well, yeah, he did. So there's like some nice closure to that. But the second thing is, oh no, I'm my dad all over again. I'm doing the nice houses, cars, and trips to Europe thing, compensating for my physical presence there. Or when I'd be on vacation, yeah, I'm there, but I'm like facing my phone, putting out fires while the Eiffel Tower is like right behind me. I should be like looking at where I'm at versus putting out fires. And so thankful to say that doesn't happen anymore, but yeah, it didn't happen overnight. And so I remember thinking, okay, I'm on board with this. This is not going to repeat. It stops here. But it took 3 years for me to reach complete burnout in 2018. That's what led to the call, and that was the foundation of everything else. So yeah, kind of coming more towards more current days, say back to the 21, 22 timeframe. I'm teaching my son how to negotiate real estate. I'm never missing any of his games, like my dad, told me not to do. His biggest regret essentially became my biggest mission in life. And by don't mean games, he meant don't literally miss the games, but there was also part of there that means don't miss out on his life. Just be present for him in things. And so yeah, that negotiating real estate thing was an awesome thing, because we're at our summer lake house up north. We live in Texas. We've got a place up in northern Michigan, and we're looking at this property. And I'm thinking, all right, the old me would have said, all right, Leo, go in that room. Here's the iPad and knock yourself out for an hour. We got grown up stuff to do. The new me, the current me, is more like teachable moment. I'm going to have my son make the offer to the realtor. And, he might not get every detail, but later we'll debrief and dissect what just happened. And so I told my son, go tell the realtor, because they give you a minute to talk amongst yourself as a family. Like, do we like it? Do we not? Whatever. And so I was like, here's the price. We're going to close in 30 days. Leave the furniture, because this is going to be an Airbnb that's going to save $30,000. Leave the dock over there, because this is a waterfront lake house, and docks could be 50, 80K. So leave that there. In my head, I'm like, all right, we're saving 100 grand, and this will be our next Airbnb. And so he made the offer to the agent. Agent, smiles like, oh my gosh, this kid's like talking this business. He looks up almost like, is that the offer? And I'm like, hey, the young whippersnapper said it, so he's representing us for now. And yeah, and then we got the house, and the kind of just going through that was a special moment, because one, it's a moment he'll never forget. He'll be, he'll remember being kind of thrown into it and figuring it out, and it'll be a great experience that I hope he has with his kids when it's time for him to sort of go out there and buy property, or any kind of like moment where it's like, how can I kind of throw my child into this moment and let them be part of it, instead of just like zoned out on technology, while they're kind of getting influence from somewhere else, not mom or dad. It's from somewhere else. And yeah, so that's that. And sort of like more coming to current day. So that was 4 or 5 years ago. Now he runs a podcast. He's 10 going on 11. So that was about 3 years ago ish. Now that we just crossed into the new year, all my numbers, I gotta like, okay, we gotta realign our how many years back here. But yeah, I've kind of just opened the door for him, and he's kind of running right through it. and just kind of helping him motivated to kind of stay with it. But I've had a number of friends and peers, like I said earlier, tell me like, you got to teach people how you do this stuff. And I'm like, okay, teach them how to travel, how to buy real estate, how to start a business. Like, I didn't know like where to go with it, so I just kind of like parked it. And then over the last few months, especially the last half of the year we just finished, the whole concept of buying back time. If you can free yourself from being the bottleneck in your business, you can use the time that you bought back to anything you want. I'm a family first, father first guy. Let's use that to bring dad back home, so that he can make an impact on his children. Every son, and speaking as a son and as a father, like, we need to hear approval from our dad that we can do things. Or if we, step out of bounds, literally, or in one way, shape, or form in life, like, hey, son, get back up. You can do this. That's what we as sons and young men crave from our dad, because he's showing us how we're supposed to be when we get to that age. And of course, women and young girls need something totally different from the dad. But speaking from the father son perspective, that's my experience. And so yeah, the whole concept of buying back time so that you can give it back to your family, because the things that can happen when a founder dad is sort of all in on the business, and I call my avatar, the people that I work with, cash rich, time poor. Cash rich because your business gets all your time, but time poor in the sense that your family gets none of it, or they get the stressed out version of you, the burned out, the short tempered, the always upset, the always on your phone while you're trying to hear, out of one ear. And so this is about bringing dad back home in the presence, because if they're not getting it from dad, they're going to get it from iPads and iPhones, and who knows what influence is coming when you leave them out in the wild, wild west like that. So I know I threw a lot out at you, wherever you want to pick it up from there. But yeah.
Yeah, my next question actually was about the avatar. So I'm glad you knocked on that. Um, but yeah, man, you are 100% correct. There's a lot of people out there that you know, time is of an essence, especially with your family.
Mhm.
Showing your family how to kind of your sons, that's your replacement. That's
Yep.
your, they say it's all about your last name. And whatever you're doing in life carries on your last name even when you're gone. So it's not just about the business and the business keep going, but it's also about your last name. So sons need to see the fathers do those type of things.
Yeah.
So kudos to you on that, man.
Thank you.
The buyback time formula. Let's get into it. So is it a book? Is it a course? How do you present the formula to anyone that's interested?
Yeah, I like to say it's a method, it's a movement, and there are books and kind of walking along with you to implement the process. But yeah, so I wrote a book called Buyback Time Formula. It's buybacktimeformula.com. It's 128 pages. I have it on my site. It's free, just pay shipping. It's a heavy book, and I pour everything I know about buying back time, everything that I did to get myself out from working 90 hours a week to semi-retired for the most part, and more than doubling my business. So this isn't about, you're going to quit working on your business and it's just going to fall apart, because that would be irresponsible. It's like, we're going to like reduce your hours, but we're going to have systems and frameworks in place so that not only does it just barely maintain itself, but it's actually going to grow. And there's methodology to that. And then the time that we buy back, there's an intentional process to give it back to your family. It's not just, all right, you're on your own, go figure it out. It's like, we need to find out what's important to your family that you've been missing. And if you're like, I've been blowing the whole thing, I have no idea. Well, I have an idea of what's important for most families. Let's start there. And like the old me would schedule something like a game, and in my mind, it's in my calendar, but it's almost tentative. If there's something that comes up, that's the first thing to wipe away. And I don't like, I don't lose a minute of sleep because of it in that at that time. But now I'm treating my family moments like games, recitals, date nights, and things like that as important as I would treat any other, like a Zoom meeting on my calendar. I'm not going to miss a Zoom meeting unless I get hit by a bus. Haven't been hit by a bus. I need to treat that the same on the personal side. And so I have a book, again, Buyback Time Formula. And for those that want to get it and implement it, I hope that you can buy that book and you don't need anything else. There's no like, oh, go buy this for the next big secret. All of the quote secrets are in that book. So there's nothing, top shelf. I also know a lot of my avatar, cash rich, time poor, the me of 10 years ago, would have paid a small fortune to collapse the time it took from bottleneck to pure freedom. And so I have an offer where I can walk alongside of people that were in my place of 10 years ago to help accelerate that. And so that's a program that I can do that. But yeah, those are really the two things. But again, my hope is people get the book and they're like, oh my gosh, it's all in here. Holy cow. Let me go implement this and let me see transformation in my life. And now let me give that time back to my family because my business is getting too much of that time.
Got it. So it's the book, and you're what I'm hearing you say is it's the book. The book will tell you everything, and after the book, there is necessarily no upsell.
Correct. Yeah, and there's other tools and things you could buy to help kind of streamline and simplify things. Like I got like a video series. Some people like to hear the audio, so there's other ways to consume the information that people could invest in if they like. But literally, if you like to have a physical book in your hands and you like to read, like we've done for most of the existence of humanity, everything you need to go from I'm the bottleneck to I have pure freedom is in that book. There's no like secret rock you got to go look under to see what the next secret is.
Right. Okay, got it. So also you're a speaker. And are you is that something that you um are actively looking to do, or is that just a part of, someone read the book and maybe they want you to come speak, or are you tentatively a speaker actively at this time?
Yeah, actually, I am. And buybacktimeformula.com/speaking, I have like a sample reel of a presentation that I've done. Yeah, I've spoken and I really focus my whole speech or speaking opportunity around the whole don't miss Leo's games because I feel like that message needs to go out that, a lot of us entrepreneurs, we have ups and downs, as entrepreneurs and founders of businesses. We can always recover. We can always make more money, but we can never rewind a childhood and relive moments that we should have been at. And one saying that I always have is like, because I've been there, I've been at that quote deathbed moment where there's regret, and I've never heard anybody say, I'm so glad I missed that game for that client meeting. By the time you're at that day reflecting on your past, you're not going to even remember the name of that client, but you will remember whether you were there or you weren't for those games. And so at the end of all of our lives, I know we're going to have regrets because we're human and that's just how we work. But the goal is to minimize regrets so that when you're thinking back on your life, hey, you know what? There's things I could have done better. Yeah, we all could have done better. But when I learned that there's a way to do it better, I went all in on it. And I can hang my hat up on that versus living in regret.
That's good. That's good. I 100% agree. So a little bit about marketing, because I know you know what you're doing. You've been online for a very long time. When I was in college, we had I took lessons in marketing, and I just remember one thing always stuck with me, and maybe it's just the type of person I am, but it's an acronym called KISS
Oh,
when it
yeah.
comes to marketing.
Get
Okay.
offended every time somebody says it to me.
Okay, so I noticed that your website, and everyone that comes on this show, I see everything from simple websites to very complex websites. I noticed that your website, the buybacktimeformula.com website, is simple, to the point, has a call to action. And is this is this I guess on purpose? Like, is this the way that you have ran your supplemental businesses? Is this part of your formula to keep it simple?
That is correct. That website specifically, or any other website in my past that you will find, will never win beauty awards. And that's kind of on purpose. Yes, KISS is keep it simple, silly, just to put it nicer. But yeah, it's a confused mind never buys. That's something that I learned early on. And that's one thing is we need to have clarity in our marketing message, especially on our website. Like the goal is to point them to one place so that they can take that desired action. Like for me, you go to that website, the main intention is so that you can be educated a little bit about me and be compelled enough to click through to order the book. I also have other links there too for people that want to reach out or get on the socials. But yeah, the whole goal is to keep your marketing message simple so that people aren't thinking, well, kind of like the message, but you've got this and you've got that. Like, where do I start? Yeah, for me, everything starts in the book, and it just goes from there. So I'm all about keeping the marketing message simple.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to leave it right there because I believe everyone should keep their marketing message simple because that's what we're trying to do is make money. You know, we're not complex artists or anything. We can leave that to the artists and the designers. But if you're a marketer and a business person, you want to make sales. George, I want to thank you for coming on the Millionaire by Morning podcast, not only telling us your story, but giving us an insight into your formula.
Oh, thank you, Rashad. It's been fun.
This has been fun, man. So, to anyone that's out there, I hope you have a very great 2026 year and continue to make moves, make money, and make meaningful memories. Until next time.